So today I wanted to talk to you about the narcissist cycle, how it works, to give you an idea of maybe how the cycle works or maybe what happened. So I do believe that, we choose who we are going to be in our fruition before we are placed in our mother's womb. Between being created by God in the spirit realm or birthed by God, however you want to look at it, we are between that period. There is, I don't know, I guess in a physicality of who we are here in our avatar with our mind, will, and emotions and our spirit. I guess the best way I can put it in a fashion that's linear, because we think in time. God is outside of time, so the way he's going to view things, his perspective is going to be different than ours. But for me to explain it to y'all, the best way I could explain it is everything we do and everything that happens here on earth has to first be birthed in the spirit realm. There has to be a fruition. I'm saying the fruition, the completion of it has to be done. It has to be birthed, and when it's birthed, it's already in it. It already is in its state of completeness as well. So it's like, as soon as it's thought of, it's acted upon one way or the other, and the result is there. It's all in the same moment. And that's what happens in the spirit realm before it ever becomes an issue or before it ever acts out here on earth. It's almost like if you were to look at something as it has lag time. So in the spirit realm has no lag, y'all. And it is like the speed of light. It makes you think of that superhero, like what was his name, Flash or something like that, where it's like he would run so fast you couldn't even see him. And that's kind of how it works in the spirit realm. It's that quick. Okay, it's even quicker than that because it's outside of time. And that's why everything occurs. It's the thought, the action, whether you changed your mind or not, it's all in that moment. And the result. Okay, and anything that happens down here, it's almost like this down here is trying to catch up with what the spirit realm already did. That's my point. It's lagging far behind. And we're just like, it already happened up there and we're running to catch up to finish it here on earth. I mean, that's really what it is. And that's why when you're birthed, it's like between God either creating you or you being birthed out of God, however you want to look at it. And before you're placed in your mother's womb, everything's been done. You went between that period of time in that gap theory, and everything is theory, even psychology and is all 99% theory. And they make it like it's fact, but you can poke holes all in psychology. You can poke holes all in history, science, anything. I mean, even religion has its own issues. A lot of people have these doctrines and these disputes and debates, and a lot of times the ones that are good, would be good debates, don't go that far, because people are so indoctrinated. They can't use their brain, they can't use their mind, their spirit to think. They can't think past a certain point, or they refuse to because it's blasphemous or something. I see it every day. That's why you can't talk about religion and you can't talk about politics. But politics is kind of annoying because politics doesn't really exist. I mean, it does, but it's not. It's all orchestrated down here. But it's like I said, it starts from what we do is where the politics. I'm saying the voting process is null and void. But when you are birthed from God, before you're put in your mother's womb, you are ran through. You could look at it like you are ran through a set of tests, maybe questions and answers. And what do you think about this? And how would you act or respond or react upon this? And all of those measures are run through your spirit man, and you have to come up with an answer. It's like the little bubble test, those electron bubble tests we used to take, and you got to fill in the bubble. Did you pick A, B, C, D, or E? And then you are based on that test. You're placed in a mother's womb, the one where it's going to be fair for you. Because God is fair, as much as we don't think he is. And you can rationalize that he's unfair, but I could also find a way to rationalize it legitimate as him being fair every time, probably. And if it's unfair, it's really not unfair. It's your perspective. It's based on like what is going to be best for your spirit to make it to heaven. What's your best opportunity? Sometimes what you think is unfair is actually fair, and it's fair because it may be so brutal on you, but maybe that brutality will get you to change your mind and make it to heaven. Repent. Because it's all about repentance and obedience, really, and having faith. But faith is obedience. It's the action of. So we're run through a set of tests, but you're not really corrupted before you're placed in your mother's womb because you didn't actually act on those tests. You just kind of answered them, or you had a conglomerate or a conglomerate or a cohesive type of thinking about the situation, but you didn't act upon it. So it's an unconscious what you would do in that scenario, maybe. But because it hasn't been acted upon and there's no real feelings involved because you haven't even existed yet. So it's not like that before the fetus is even, or that egg is even planted in earth, you were going through these decision-making ideas, but you weren't even in this realm yet. So it's not really corrupting you. It's just preparing you for, it's not prepare, it's preparing. I mean, it's preparing you for who you're going to be in your fruition, your life's destiny, whether it's good or bad, but it is what it is. And God gives us free will. That's why it occurs like that. So then you run through a set of tests, and then you're placed in a mother's womb. It depends on, what region of the world you're going to go to, what race, color, or creed you're going to go to, what religion, or if any, your and beliefs, set of beliefs and culture you're going to be placed into. You're talking about the area, the territory, the climate, your blood type, what generational wealth or what generational curses that should be placed in your bloodline. That's going to be fair for you. And it may be set up to where it's as fair as it can be. God takes your innate spirit, who you decided to be, and tries to set your life up here in this world so that you would have the best outcome to make it to heaven. Regardless of what you think, that may be the case. Now, out here, you may feel like everything is unwarranted and it's unfair all the time to you. You're always poor. You're always getting beat on. Or, somebody may say, well, I was too rich. I lost my soul because I was too rich. It wasn't fair to me because I had too much money. Or I had everything handed to me. And somebody may say, I've had a terrible illness and I've had it my whole life, or I had, some sort of disease process that I've been dealing with my whole life, and maybe you were subpar in your abilities as far as genetically, and you had to deal with being blind or not being able to hear or whatever. Or, and all these issues or comorbidities, but maybe, those things were only, maybe it sucked for you, but maybe you would have been so hard-headed, maybe you would have never repented. But maybe because of those things, it landed some sort of repentance in you so that you found God and made it to heaven. And then some people are just blessed through and through, and maybe that's because their spirit always loved God regardless of what was going to happen to them. Maybe it's all warranted and all fair based on God's principles and God's idea. God's idea and thoughts are above ours and beyond ours. So whenever you're placed in your mother's womb, whoever you're going to become it's not nurture, meaning you were raised this way, this is why you became that way. You're a product of your environment. That may seem that way. Based on statistics and the way psychology and anthropology and science and history and our current affairs and current news and situations explain it out to you. But you can explain things and rationalize things any which way you want to be believable. And a lot of our stuff in our history has been faked. It's false. It's a lie. You could poke holes all in our history. You can poke holes in a lot of different things. Chemistry, current affairs even are being changed. Just in the last 30, 40, 50 years, you could see how the current affairs that happened in the people's lives around you in the world, well, the way it was reported is not what happened. Okay, well, what does that lead to? That leads to our future history. So we're already in the current. We're preaching to people all around us, and most of them believe the narratives of what happened on the day maybe some big buildings just hit the ground in the matter of minutes, based on some fiberglass planes hitting them. And that's not what happened. It's not what happened, y'all. What they call those theories, they're not theories, y'all. They're facts. The stuff that they call those theories are really the true news of what really happened. And it may, as far-fetched as it seems, that's because you're getting into the metaphysical and the spiritual attributes if you could see it from the right vision, the right perspective. But people are so clouded up because what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a cloak and a fog of witchcraft over this whole world. And when you can see through the fog, see through the witchcraft, and see it for what it is, because they have to tell the truth, people call it some stupid theory and some hocus pocus lie. No, a lot of times you're the one with the hocus pocus on you. And then the bad thing is people don't have a belief and an understanding of who God is. So then they may see through the fog and the hocus pocus, but then they believe, man, they're maybe agnostic. So then they can see through the fog of the spell work and the witchcraft and see with their own two eyes of what really happened. But then they have their belief system is off. So it never plugs in right. They believe in aliens or something. Well, I'll tell you, the aliens have been here a long time. We're waiting for them to come. They've been here a long time. It's like that movie Visitors. If you unzip some of these people that you've been dating, you'll find they're big old roaches. They're not human at all. And when you lose love and when you lose the ability to be truthful, then you lose love. You're stripped of love in the 9 fruits of the Spirit. And when you can't do anything good. You're like the Bible, or in the book of Enoch, it would talk about the Nephilim. When Enoch walked and was not, right? He walked with God and was not, for God took him. But before he took him, Enoch dealt with the fallen host. He dealt with the Watchers. And when he dealt with the Watchers, and this was about a 1,000-year period, Enoch lived to be 365 years, and his son, Methuselah, lived 969 years. He was the oldest man to ever walk the earth. And the week that he died, God flooded the earth out. That's why they had to sit in the ark for 7 days. Because back then you had to mourn a death for 7 days. So Methuselah died as soon as the ark was finished and it was completed and it was loaded up. And then Methuselah died, and they shut the doors, and they stayed there for 7 days to mourn his death, and then the flood began. But anyway, he dealt with the fallen angels, the Watchers, Azazel, and all those. And he had to deal with spiritual warfare, spiritual witchcraft in high places. They were the ones on the thrones. They were the ones, the principalities and the powers that ruled over the whole earth. That's why you have megaliths, the megaliths and the megalith structures and the monoliths. They were all from that era of time. And don't get it twisted. We did not have technology. We were not exempt from technology until the late 1800s. We had technology in every era. And it happened very quickly, speedily, mightily fast. Okay, and if you look back in our history, you're going to find that we did not have, not a computer, a TV. We didn't have a professional sport over the whole earth that was a conglomerate. We didn't have any kind of congruency in government. We didn't have any technology at all until the 1880s. Nothing. Almost as if we came out of caves and we were barbarians and we had baseball bats and we were beating our spouses or something to get them into line. And we were wearing some kind of leopard skin, animal skin. And then from between the 1860s and 1880s, all of a sudden we're making conveyor belts and warehouses are being built and And, you know, then cars and computers, and then we're flying to Pluto or some shit, man, which is a whole hoax in itself. You know, they even have pictures of Pluto with Pluto engraved in this planet. Come on, y'all. The way space is portrayed to you and how we get there is a complete hoax, a complete lie. If you want to believe it, that's fine. Go ahead and believe it. But a lot of times people can't even stretch their brain far enough to even look into matters. It talks about if you can't even take the time to look into a matter and you're judging the matter, then how smart are you? It talks about this in the Word. You're kind of ignorant. And I'll hand it to you. A lot of times it is kind of hard to look into some things because we have been born and bred to believe a certain thing about a subject, and we never ever did look into it because it wasn't even worth looking into, is what we've been taught. Like the flat earth, man. I mean, you know, when I first landed on the flat earth and somebody was portraying that maybe we live on a flat earth, it was over a decade ago. I mean, I remember landing on this one. And I had been through quite a few different conspiracies, or, you know, what they call conspiracies. They are conspiracies. They're conspiratorial facts. They're not theories at all. They are facts. In fact, that's the true news of the world. News. North, east, west, south. News. The four corners. Anyway, when, you know, you get in your head, you know, that what we've been told is the people of old just knew that if they went too far in the ocean, they'd just fall off the side. And we used to laugh about that, of course, right? I think everybody has had that conversation when they were a kid or whatever. Or your history teacher or world geography teacher would talk about it and laugh it off in class, you know. A lot of people are used for vessels of the enemy's use. Some, very few, are used for God's vessel, as a vessel of God. But just as God uses a vessel, you know, as his tool, or as his, what we used to say, to make contact, or conduction, right? So different metals are conductive. Mercury is one of the greatest conductors. Silver, gold, bronze, copper, nickel, brass, any of those. They're all conductors. And they're also precious metals. That's why you see them on these buildings, these steeples. You ever look at these steeples? They're all over. Some of them, they're green. They're green because of the patina. The patina is the type of rust and the type of the age and the tarnish that comes to the metal, the copper. You know, Statue of Liberty started out copper, turned green. That's called patina. You can wash it off and make it look like copper again if you wanted to clean it up. But it's still going to turn green again. But those are conductors. All of these structures with these steeples and these cupolas, these onion domes and stuff, these spires, those were conductors, and there was mechanisms in all of those structures to bring down free air electricity. They were dismantled in the 1800s. I'm not going to talk about this, but anyway, we all decided what we were going to be before we came here to Earth, in our fruition, in our completeness. And you may say, well, what happens when a person comes down here and they make changes? Well, if they make changes, it was because in that fruition, before they were placed in their mother's womb, they also made those changes in that moment of time. Everything was complete. And you may say, well, what about the person that comes down here and then they find Christ and they get saved and go to heaven? Well, I do believe that you do need a relationship with Christ to go to heaven, because you gotta understand, you know, just as you're growing in your healing and you're on your healing process, you also, part of your healing process is understanding who the Son of God is and what he did and why he did it and what this world is here to teach you. It's to teach you about Christ's love. That's what it's centered around, love. But not just love, it's all love that started and emulates from Christ. And it all started with that cross. Who the hell do you know that would come down here? Nobody could do it. That's why it's said that way. Nobody could do it except the God-man, the man that walked in the flesh, and he was God. He's called Yeshua, the God-man in the flesh. The one who came down here and showed you and me how to love. And he was so good at loving that he not only did everything perfect and was perfection to a T in its physicality, but he also was humble enough and loved his people, his own creation enough that he would also perish so that he could take back this world by going to death, hell, and the grave for 3 days and putting them through sure wreckage, defeating, destroying, and wrecking the levels, the 9 levels of the abyss, and taking those keys back and telling them who the hell that he is. So that's why folks had to sit in paradise under the earth, in a spiritual realm called paradise, and they could not ascend to heaven. They had to sit into paradise in the centers of the earth, broken up in Sheol by a chasm, a space of heights and with waters. Up above was paradise in the inner earth, and it's the spiritual place, the physical place of spiritual hell. So Sheol, hell, is what became what we call hell, or the abyss now. And paradise was a place above that area that you could actually have the ability, if you were in paradise, to scope down and look down into and watch individuals as they suffered, but you did not. It was a chasm, a holding place. It talks about it as a, do you know when you used to, I used to carry my toys in my shirt when I was a kid. Like, I used to have these action figures, and if I had like 5 or 6 of them, or Hot Wheels cars, I would pick my shirt up like this, and I would put my, my 5 action players in my shirt, right? And then I would carry it like this downstairs. And this canopy is kind of what it's described as this holding place called paradise. It was like a canopy and a, what you would see if you were look over side of a mountain. They were on top of the mountain area. That was the paradise. It was a whole different world for them. And then they could look down below the mountain, and Sheol, hell, was there. And that's where it talks about Lazarus, and he would be dying for a drop of water. Or no, the rich man, and he would ask Abraham to tell Lazarus to give him a drop of water, and to go back and tell his brothers. That was paradise. That was a story of them being in paradise, not heaven. So everybody had to stay there until Christ came and was crucified on the cross, and then went down to hell for 3 days, as did Jonah, right? Because he went down to Sheol, hell, for 3 days. Well, in the belly of the fish, he went to the gates of Sheol, hell, before he repented. And then he was thrown back up on the shores of Nineveh. And this is what Christ had to do for him to unlock the individuals from previous to him for thousands of years, the saints, the believers, and the ones that walked before he incarnated in human form, as he was birthed by the Archangel Michael into the Holy Spirit. He was placed into his mother Mary. And he had to walk this thing out for 33 years. I mean, he had to be whipped, and he was a martyr, y'all. And it was unwarranted completely. He was completely just and holy, and he was righteous in every which way, sinless. And he had to pour his blood and his body out here as a painful sacrifice, so that we would have rights. We could have grounding and rights to get the hell out of here, and not just go to paradise, but advance to heaven, to the heavens. And you may ask yourself, I wonder if heaven's got a ghetto. Well, I don't care, man. I just want to get the hell out of here. I don't care if I'm in a ghetto of heaven. If I'm in heaven's ghetto, that's fine with me, bitch. But I'm getting the fuck out of here. And that's why after he went down to death, hell, and the grave, that people started to see prophets and apostles back on the earth for 40 days. And they even saw Christ with holes in his hands. Because for 40 days after this occurred, They all came on top of the earth, and they were walking around for 40 days. And then they ascended to the heavens. But they chilled out here for 40 days. You know why? Because 40 is the number of change. It's the biblical number of change, 40. And that's why he went into the wilderness for 40 days. And that's why the children of Israel were in the desert, in the wilderness, in the desert for 40 years. Because they refused to cross the Jordan. So God said, I'm going to let your whole fucking generation sit out here and die. Because that's what 40 years is as well. It's a generation. It's to change the generation. And that's what he did. He said, okay, you don't believe that you can cross the Jordan and kill the Nephilim and destroy the giants the size of cedar trees with the power of and my might, God said. Okay, so I'm going to give you 40 years to sit out here in the desert. I'm going to feed you. I'm going to water you. I'm going to give you manna to eat. And you're going to live subpar. Not because I wanted you to, but you didn't have the